How to conduct a First Amendment audit. My name is Patrick Nolan. I'm an attorney licensed in the state of Missouri. This is Pat Talks Law. How to conduct a First Amendment audit. The First Amendment is a massively broad topic to consider for auditing. It's necessary to narrow the scope. Now, we begin that by identifying some categories, and only some because I want this video to be less than 25 hours long. Now, categories for the First Amendment include freedom of information. Now, this is your federal FOIA request or your state information request. In Missouri, we call it a sunshine request. Your freedom to assemble, your freedom to speak. Political speech is very heavily protected. Hey, fuck the cops, that's protected speech. Fuck you cops. You might be going to jail and disturbing the peace or some other equivalent charge. Freedom to petition the government for redress of grievances. Freedom of religion. Freedom to film. There are more, but really, the one most YouTubers are interested in is the freedom to film. In order to produce a scientifically valid collection of audits that could be used to affect actual change, the auditor has to control the variables and document the process well. Here are my guidelines for conducting a successful First Amendment audit. First, decide what you are going to audit. We're going with freedom to film in this example. Okay, plan your audit. Now, how do you plan an audit? First, is your audit series going to be a pool of 10, 15, 25 locations? Confine it to one region or state at a time. For example, if you're going to audit Yahoo County in Yeehaw State, make a list of the locations you intend to audit. Plan to space your audit out over several days. There is a cumulative effect that you're going to want to avoid. For example, if the first officer reacts poorly and you move on to your second location and that officer responds, still acting badly, is it truly a second reaction or a continuation of the first? I would call it a continuation of the first. And unfortunately, that makes the second audit invalid and really confuses the first one. Don't cancel your follow-on audits because they acted right at the first one. Follow through on the test. Likewise, don't cancel your follow-on audit merely because they failed the first one. The officer might be educated by his supervisor or you get a different officer on the second one. If they are threatening to throw you in jail, look, call it off. We'll address what to do if you encounter problems in another video. Another variable to control is going to be your clothing. You should dress up slightly, but not stand out high. Think business casual sans tie. Why should you dress like this? Because your clothing is one factor in how people perceive you, how they relate to you. Dressing in all black with a ski mask and a trench coat that says "fuck authority" on the back is going to pull a different response than, for example, if you're wearing khakis and a polo. Now, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with any particular style of dress, just that you want to control the variables. Frankly, it would be a great test to do a freedom to film audit in khakis and a polo one day, and then dress goth another, and test and see the difference in the response. What you wear may have less of a bearing than the consistency of what you wear. Additionally, equipment. There is a huge difference between a $25,000 news camera and an iPhone on a selfie stick. And people will respond differently to the two as well. Be consistent. Don't upgrade or change equipment during an audit cycle. Your demeanor. Plan to be nice. If you are in a bad mood or your dog just died, put the audit off. Please tend to respond to how they are treated. Make a checklist. I love checklists. This way you can repeat all the same steps every time. Yeah, I know, it's not as fun as piling in the car and then jumping out to stick it to the man, but your audits will be better, and you will have better evidence to present for eventual court case, court proceedings, or to the media to show that there is a problem in this audit region. So remember, plan your audit and then film your plan. Know your state and local laws. You know, there may be a state law you should be aware of, and I can't address every state or locality here. There could be a city ordinance that you need to be aware of. Check it out before you go. You know, one good source potentially would be library.municode.com. That's a great source. I love Municode. Pay special attention to the recording of private conversations or telephone calls. Audit one thing at a time. Again, control the variables. Don't audit the Second Amendment accidentally by open carrying while you're conducting a First Amendment audit. You don't know how the police will be responding to the gun or to the camera. You know, freedom of the film, private individuals have a right to record public employees, including police officers, in the public discharge of their duties. The First Amendment provides private individuals a constitutionally protected right to photograph or video record public employees. This right, however, is not completely unqualified, and it is and may be subject to reasonable time, place, and manner restrictions. However, the court in the Glick case did state that the right to film police officers is not without limitations, and it is subject to those reasonable time, place, and manner restrictions. Quote, in such traditional spaces as the Boston Common in the Glick case, the rights of the state to limit the exercise of the First Amendment activity are sharply circumscribed. Now what that means is, in a traditional public forum, the reasonableness of the time, place, and manner restrictions that the state wishes to impose is very different than the reasonableness of the time, place, and manner restrictions in, for example, the city clerk's office or the lobby of the children's division or whatever your child protective services in your state. You know, and this is a very important component of the decision that most auditors overlook. They can actually restrict your freedom to film, but those restrictions have to be reasonable. And reasonable is a moving point that's impacted by the facts of the situation and the location that we're talking about. So returning to the quote, moreover, the complaint indicates that Glick filmed the officers from a comfortable remove. That's a reasonable distance, and neither spoke nor molested them in any way, except directly responding to the officers when they addressed him. Such peaceful recording of an arrest in a public space that does not interfere with the police officers' performance of their duties is not reasonably subject to limitation. I added the duplication there. You know, notably, the right to record public officials is not limited to the streets and sidewalks. It includes areas where individuals have a legal right to be present, including an individual's home or business, and common areas of public and private facilities and buildings. Now, this is misunderstood, possibly intentionally, by some auditors. This does not grant you access to private property merely because the police are there. The property owner can always ask you to leave. They may not, but they can. And that applies even to public access areas like a mall. Property owner can ask you to leave. Now let's take just a moment and talk about reality and the street. You are not going to win an argument with the police on the street. Don't get into it. So how do you handle it? Well, when you're in outdoor public spaces where you are lawfully present, you have the right to capture any image that's in plain view. That includes pictures and videos of federal buildings, transportation facilities, including airports, and police officers. water treatment facilities. That's all fair game. However, when you are on private property, the property owner sets the rules about taking photographs or videos. And if you disobey those rules, then that property owner can order you off the property and even have you arrested for trespassing if you refuse to comply. Now, police should not worry you to stop taking pictures or video. Now, under no circumstances should police demand that you delete your photographs or your pictures. Your photographs or your video. Wow, I misread that. Look, police officers can order citizens to cease activities that are truly interfering with legitimate law enforcement operations. If you're standing on top of them or they're trying to arrest somebody, they can tell you to stop. And in general, a court will trust a police officer's judgment about what is interfering, far more than they're going to trust your judgment. So if a police officer orders you to stand back, stand back. If an officer says that he's going to arrest you if you continue to use your camera, you know, in most circumstances, it may well be better to put the camera away and then call your lawyer, rather than risking an arrest. Of course, at that point, you're more than welcome to pursue your activism and be arrested. That could hurt your case. Generally, police officers may not confiscate or demand to view your photographs or video without a warrant. If you're arrested, the police may only scrutinize the contents of your phone or your camera with a search warrant. In addition, if the police have a reasonable good faith belief that your phone, your camera, or your SD card contains evidence of a crime committed by someone other than the police themselves, then it's possible that they could have grounds to seize the camera, and the court may approve that seizure. Now, you have a right to capture images in public places, but you do not always have a right to record what people say. Now, every state has laws that address the recording of conversations. You need to research the law in your state before you undertake this course of action. Conversations with the police in the course of their duties, those are not likely to be considered private conversations. But many other things that you may record on a public street, such as two people quietly conversing away from others, that could well be considered a private conversation and inculcate a criminal penalty. You have the right to videotape and audiotape police officers performing official duties in public. That means that you can record an officer during a traffic stop, during an interrogation, or while he and she is making an arrest. You can record people protesting or giving speeches in public. Now, while the state of Missouri is a one-party telephone call recording state, and that means that a phone call can be recorded as long as one party on the call knows it is being recorded. Not every state is like that. There are a number of states that are two-party states, and there are pretty serious criminal penalties. I strongly recommend that you look up the law in your state. The Reporters Committee for Freedom of the Press is a great website that can help you with that, rcfp.org. Now, if you are stopped or detained for taking photos, look, always be polite with the police officers and never physically resist a police officer. Now, there are a number of states where it is illegal to resist an unlawful arrest. Excuse me. Missouri is one of those states. You cannot resist an unlawful arrest. Now, I know we've all seen the stuff online about how you can resist an unlawful arrest. You can resist with force. That's misleading. I will do something else on that in the future if I'm asked to. But the fact of the matter is, the police cannot lose on the street. If you resist an unlawful arrest, you're likely going to wind up tased or shot. So remember that. Don't resist an unlawful arrest. Go with it. Your lawyer will handle it. If you are stopped for photography, ask if you're free to go. If the police officer says no, you are being detained. You don't need to ask any further. And a police officer cannot detain you without a reasonable suspicion that you have or are about to commit a crime or are in the process of doing so. So until you ask to leave, if you're free to go, your stop is considered voluntary under the law and is legal. And look, this is where you see auditors on YouTube getting into stupid arguments with the police. I'm not going to show you my ID unless you have a reasonable and articulable suspicion, and so on. They overlook, possibly because it makes the video get them views and donations, but they overlook the fact that the police officer doesn't have to tell you what his reasonable, articulable suspicion is. Justice Scalia wrote that police don't have to tell you why you are being arrested. It's good police work, he wrote, but it's not required. The same would seem to apply to a stop, a Terry stop such as this. If you are being detained, politely state that you believe you have the right to take pictures or video, and that you do not consent to the officer looking through or deleting anything. But if the officer reaches for your camera or your phone, do not resist. You could be arrested for that resistance. Simply repeat that you do not consent to any search or seizure. Make sure that you call a lawyer as soon as possible. Here's the final nugget. Once your rights are violated, you do not need to stay on the scene and get arrested. The violation of your First Amendment rights is actionable without an arrest. The threat of arrest has a chilling effect on speech. Lawsuits and publicity change policies, not arguments with police officers on the street. Plan to win the battle, not merely to look good losing the war. Look, this video is way too long, and I still didn't have enough time to address everything that should be addressed. I will do more on this subject in the future. Please like, subscribe, and hit the alert bell if you're into that. Thank you.